The Cadaver Synod remains one of history's strangest and most macabre spectacles. A corpse on trial, vengeance cloaked in holy robes. It reminds us that power, fear, and obsession can twist even the sacred. So tonight, we descend into a tale of corruption, obsession, and a church that turned on itself. A story of justice twisted into nightmare, and of a corpse that demanded the world's attention. In the turbulent world of 9th century Rome, the papacy was as much a seat of political power as spiritual authority. Pope Stephen VI, the man who would orchestrate one of the most bizarre trials in history, rose amid this chaos, a figure driven by ambition, fear, and revenge. The victim of this wrath was Pope Formosus, his predecessor, a man already dead, whose papacy had been marked by controversy, alliances, and conflicts with secular rulers. Stephen's motives were deeply entwined with the volatile politics of the area. Formosus had supported factions opposed to Stephen's allies, and tensions with powerful Roman families and the Holy Roman Empire created a climate ripe for vengeance. By the time Stephen ascended to the papal throne, the desire to assert dominance and discredit rivals was not merely political, it was personal. The decision to exhume Formosus' corpse and put it on trial was unprecedented. The rotting body, dressed in papal vestments, was propped upon a throne in full view of the clergy and witnesses, a grotesque spectacle designed to humiliate and condemn. Witnesses recounted the chilling scene, a severed hand raised in accusation, the corpse slumped in decay, yet treated as though it could answer for its supposed crimes. The extraordinary act was more than a display of power. It was a message to allies and enemies alike. By subjecting a dead pope to trial, Stephen demonstrated that no one, not even a corpse, was beyond his reach. The Cadaver Synod would forever etch his name into history, a warning that in Rome's papal courts, justice could be twisted, morality distorted, and revenge executed in ways that defied both reason and decency. The Cadaver Synod remains one of history's most macabre spectacles. In January 1897 AD, the rotting body of Pope Formosus was exhumed, dressed in papal robes, and seated upon a throne before the clergy and public in the Basilica of St. John Lateran. The sheer audacity of putting a corpse on trial sent shockwaves through Rome, leaving witnesses horrified, fascinated, and confused. The charges against Formosus were severe: perjury, violating canon law, and illegally ascending to the papacy. Though dead, he was made to face the accusations as if life could still answer for the decisions of the past. A deacon was appointed to speak on behalf of the corpse, articulating Formosus' defense, or perhaps simply reciting statements dictated by Stephen VI's allies. The image of a decaying pope propped upright, responding through an intermediary, is both surreal and terrifying. A scene that has haunted the annals of ecclesiastical history. Witnesses describe the grim tableau: the corpse's hands stiffened in rigor mortis, raised in accusation, and the haunting scent of decay filling the air. The court debated over the legitimacy of ordinations Formosus had performed, condemning them and nullifying his acts, leaving countless clergy and bishops in a state of uncertainty and fear. It was not merely a trial, it was an assertion of dominance, a message that the living could manipulate the dead to settle scores and solidify power. The trial's outcome was as shocking as its premise. Formosus was found guilty, stripped of his papal garments, and his corpse thrown into the Tiber River. The spectacle demonstrated the lengths of which ambition and vengeance could stretch, blending legalistic procedure with grotesque theater. For the people of Rome, it was a vivid reminder that power in the papal court knew no bounds, and that even death could not protect one from political retribution. The aftermath of the Cadaver Synod plunged Rome into chaos, both politically and spiritually. The spectacle of a pope on trial after death shattered the city's faith in the sanctity of the papacy. Bishops and clergy, previously loyal to Formosus, found themselves ensnared in a web of fear and uncertainty. The legitimacy of their ordinations and decisions was suddenly questioned, leaving the church hierarchy in disarray. Ordinary Romans, witnesses to the grotesque event, recoiled in horror, whispering that divine justice had been perverted and that the very foundations of their faith were shaken. Stephen VI, the pope behind the trial, initially seemed to consolidate power. By condemning Formosus, he aimed to delegitimize his predecessor's acts and assert control over factions loyal to Formosus. Yet, this blatant display of cruelty sparked outrage among clergy and citizens alike. Within months, the backlash intensified, culminating in Stephen's own imprisonment and violent death. His rise and fall underscored a brutal truth. Rome's papacy was as much a battlefield of mortal ambition as it was a spiritual institution. The Cadaver Synod also inspired imitators and deepened divisions within the church. Rival factions seized upon the episode as justification for their own political maneuvering, heightened instability. In the years that followed, subsequent popes exhumed and reinterred Formosus with reverence, attempting to right the wrongs of the morbid trial. Yet the memory of the event lingered, immortalized in chronicles and monastic writings, a cautionary tale of corruption, vengeance, and the grotesque extremes of power. For historians, the Cadaver Synod is more than an eerie anecdote. It illuminates the deadly intersection of politics, religion, and human ambition. It serves as a haunting reminder that the pursuit of authority, unchecked by morality or reason, can twist sacred traditions into instruments of terror, leaving a legacy that echoes across centuries. The Cadaver Synod left Pope Formosus' legacy in a state of eerie limbo. Though dead, his presence continued to shape the church and the politics of Rome. Initially, his corpse's public humiliation seemed to obliterate his memory, as Stephen VI and his allies sought to erase Formosus' influence. Yet, the more they tried to suppress them, the more Formosus' story grew into legend, a symbol of martyrdom, injustice, and the grotesque extremes of power struggles within the papacy. Clergy who had been ordained by Formosus faced uncertainty. Their positions and sacraments were suddenly called into question. Attempts to delegitimize his acts created a ripple effect, undermining the authority of the church and igniting factional rivalries. Monastic scribes recorded these events in vivid, often moralizing detail, cementing Formosus' posthumous presence in history. His name became a rallying point for those who opposed Stephen VI, a spectral reminder that ambition could not permanently silence the past. In the years that followed, successive popes worked to rehabilitate Formosus' memory. His remains were reburied with dignity. Ceremonies were performed to restore his honor, and his ordinations were recognized once more. Even so, the grotesque trial had already imprinted itself on collective memory, a cautionary tale for generations of clergy and laity alike. Today, historians see Formosus' legacy as a paradox, both tarnished and immortalized by the very act meant to destroy him. The Cadaver Synod ensured he would never fade quietly into history. Instead, he became a haunting figure, a testament to the power struggles of medieval Rome, and a chilling example of how ambition, vengeance, and fear can distort the sacred into something horrifyingly profane. The Cadaver Synod remains one of the most shocking episodes in papal history, not merely for its grotesque spectacle, but for the lessons it offers about power, politics, and human nature. In 897 AD, the act of putting Pope Formosus on trial after death reflected a world in which ambition could reach beyond the grave, where fear and vengeance dictated actions, even in the highest offices of the church. The event underscores how personal rivalries and factionalism could twist religious authority into an instrument of humiliation and control. When Stephen VI sought to assert dominance and delegitimize Formosus' acts, the Synod instead exposed the fragility of power. By desecrating a corpse, the papacy revealed that even divine authority could be manipulated by mortal ambition, and that sacred offices were vulnerable to politics. Historians argue that the scandal contributed to widespread instability in Rome, undermining trust in the church and fueling ongoing disputes among clergy, nobles, and laypeople alike. Yet, the Cadaver Synod also illustrates the resilience of reputation and memory. Attempts to erase Formosus' legacy failed. His ordinations were later recognized, and successive popes worked to restore his honor. In a sense, the Synod immortalized him, ensuring that his story would survive centuries as a cautionary tale about hubris, vengeance, and the human capacity for cruelty. For modern observers, the Cadaver Synod challenges assumptions that the sanctity of institutions and the morality of those who wield power. It forces reflection on how fear, ambition, and resentment can override reason, respect, and decency, even within sacred spaces. Above all, it serves as a stark reminder that history is not always orderly or just, and that the past contains moments both bizarre and horrifying, waiting to teach lessons we may still need to learn. The Cadaver Synod remains one of history's most bizarre and chilling episodes, a tale of revenge, corruption, and the extremes of power. Pope Formosus, exhumed and placed on trial, became a grotesque symbol of political vendettas and the fragile morality of the Church in 897 AD. His corpse, judged and condemned, reminds us that history often holds events stranger and darker than fiction. Beyond the spectacle lies a cautionary tale about ambition, fear, and the human desire to dominate even beyond the grave. While centuries have passed, the echoes of the macabre trial linger, inspiring horror, fascination, and reflection on the lengths people will go to assert control. History is rarely clean or simple, and the Cadaver Synod proves that truth can be as grotesque as any legend. If you dare to explore the shadows of the past, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And as always, don't forget to look beyond the fog.